Why are so many people reluctant to change even though they say they want to? Today, I want to share with you why people don't change and what you can do as a health professional to help them do so. Welcome back to another episode of #Winning. Uriel Kane here, CEO and founder of Healthpreneur. We help health practitioners build world-class coaching businesses without the grind. And if you're a health professional who's selling, your expertise and you're selling something at a premium, not just a $100 session, here and there, you are going to run into people saying, I need to think about it. It's too expensive. There's going to be a resistance. And I want to share with you in this conversation today, but why this happens and how to overcome this. Because the reality is that unless the sale is made, that person is not going to be helped, right? Let's not be delusional in thinking that free information is going to actually help people. It doesn't, right? At best, free information will build a bit more trust so that someone's more willing to potentially work with you, but it's not going to actually fundamentally change their life. I'm not delusional in believing that all the videos on this YouTube channel are actually being implemented into our viewers' businesses. And the reason for that is because when you don't pay attention. Now, this is coming up because I see this happen so often in calls that we have with prospective clients. It also happens for our clients and their prospective clients because I review their calls and I give them feedback to improve their selling skills. And, I'll give you a couple examples. Woman is overweight by 100 pounds. She's crying on the phone. She knows she needs to change. And then at the end of the call, she says, actually, we're doing some kitchen renovations. I can't do this right now. Or someone who is specifically in this situation, a mom who had a type 1 diabetic who is 20 years old, hit 8 DKA episodes in the past year, which is essentially a life-threatening problem that if it persists, he may not be around for very long. At the end of the call, they say, I think we're just going to kind of figure some stuff out on our own for a bit, okay? And I see this over and over and over again. And if you're on the receiving end of this, it's very frustrating because when you're talking to a prospective client and you know you can change their life and they give you the nonsense, here's what I want to equip you with to help them actually take out their credit card or go get a loan or get another credit card or beg, borrow, and steal from friends and family to invest with you. Because if they don't, they will suffer. Now, before I get into that, I want to ask you this. I want you to think of something that you have wanted to do for yourself. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. Maybe it's like getting up early in the morning, or maybe it's working out more consistently, or maybe it's, making some type of change. And I want you to think about the thing that you wanted or said you wanted, but haven't really followed through on. So just take a moment to identify what that is for you, or what that has been for you. Got it? Okay, now I'm going to tell you why that hasn't been able to stick. The reason you haven't been able to make that happen consistently is because you don't have a big enough reason to do so. Period. End of story. So in my life, many, many years ago, I had a very hard time trying to convince myself to wake up early. I knew the benefits of it. I wanted to do it, but then I'd go through bouts of time where I'd wake up early one morning and then I'd sleep in the next few, and then I'd always have this internal monologue. And for years, I just said, it was just like this internal battle every single morning. And when I really think about it, the reason that I was not able to get up at the time that I decided to, 4:30 in the morning, was simply because there wasn't a compelling enough reason for me to do so. Said otherwise, the pain of my current situation was not greater than the perceived pain of change. So in my mind, I was thinking, well, if I don't get up at 4:30, it's not the end of the world. If I get up at 5:30 or 6, I still have time, whatever the situation is. And basically we're always doing this mental math. It's going to be uncomfortable for me to get up. It's going to be dark outside. It's cold, all the bullshit, the excuses, blah, 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 blah. And the only reason that those excuses won the day was because my reason for getting out of bed was not greater than those stories. Therefore, the pain of getting out of bed was greater than the payoff of doing so. Now, I want you to think about this for you and whatever that thing was for you that you decided, okay, that was the thing I committed to, but I didn't actually follow through on it. The reality is that whether it was working out consistently or maybe it was doing something in your business, the reason you didn't do it is because you think your situation is not that bad, right? And this is the human condition. So why don't people change? Because there's simply not enough pain to do so. It's really simple. We fundamentally fucking hate change, right? But for any entrepreneur and a lot of people who are growth-oriented means change. It means getting uncomfortable. It means constantly doing things to get different results, which means you have to do different things, which means that there's change. So when you think of your prospects, okay, I want to shift this now to the people you're looking to help, whether it's helping them lose weight, get over whatever health condition they're dealing with, and you're asking them to make an investment in themselves, right? A few $1,000s for a life transformational coaching experience, program, service. And they're giving you the excuses of, I don't have the money, it's too expensive, I need to think about it, I'm going to go in another direction. All of that is bullshit, okay? Do not buy the story. They are either buying your solution or you're buying their story, but a sale is always being made. And I understand there are some people who fundamentally don't have the money to afford something, but I want to challenge you on that, okay? I really want this to sink in, because if you get this, and I don't expect you to transform your business after just watching this video, but I really want this to sink in, and I want you to listen or watch this over and over again until you really, really get this. Let's say you sell a coaching program for $3,000, right? Insert whatever the condition is that this person's been suffering with for a long time. You have to understand that if they say no to you, that $3,000 doesn't just sit in their bank for the rest of their life. That $3,000 is going to be spent on groceries, on movies, on clothing, on rent, on mortgage. It's going to be spent no matter what. That is 100% guaranteed. The question is, are they going to spend it with you? Okay, and that's what we're trying to get to here, right? Someone books a call to speak with you because they want your help or they want to get a problem solved. You introduce the price and like, it's a little bit too much. Okay, dude, what were you expecting? Like, you have a life-threatening condition, and we'll come back to making sure that's very clear in a second. And for whatever reason, you thought this was going to be free or a couple $100, and in that case, you would have done so, but no. So here's the thing, is if you are a parent and your kids got kidnapped and the ransom was $3,000, would you think about it? Let me talk about this with my spouse. Let me talk about this with my husband. Let me think on this. Let me meditate on this. No way. No way. You would run through a brick wall at the Kool-Aid Man to get the money to get your kids back. Why? Because the pain of your current situation of not having your kids anymore is significantly greater than what you have to go through to get them back. Make sense? If you had to run a marathon and collect $3,000 and run up a mountain to get your kids back, you would do it no matter what, right? This is what I want you to think about. So when someone's like, well, just shut the fuck up, man. You don't want what you say you want. And I've said this so many times in this series. The reason people don't get what they want is because they don't really want it. Because they think that their current situation is okay. And that okayness is a fucking wasteland to live in. And it's our job to help the people that we want to serve, that we know are coming to us for our help. It is our job to help them see the hopelessness in their situation if they don't act, and the hope for a bigger future if they do. So let's look at a couple examples here. So let's look at the example. This is a true story, okay? Mom with her 20-year-old son, type 1 diabetic, who's had 8 DKA episodes, okay? Like, these are life-threatening problems, okay? And they're sitting on this phone, on the Zoom call, and they are talking about the situation like it's the weather. Like, it is what it is. You know, it's like, we've tried a bunch of stuff, it's not working. And end of the call, it's like, yeah, we're just going to kind of like, try some stuff out and see if it works. So here's my suggestion in this case. Okay, this is the feedback I gave my clients, who's an amazing medical doctor in this case. I said, listen, the reality is they don't think this is that big of a deal. And I asked her, I'm like, if someone has that number of DKA episodes, is that a problem? She's like, yeah, that's a life-threatening problem. I'm like, cool. Do they know that? Because if they don't think it's that big of a deal. So insert Yuri into this conversation. Hey, thanks for letting me know about that. Let me ask you, do you know what happens if your son continues to have these episodes? Here's what's going to happen. He will die. Do you want that to happen? Obviously not. That's why you're here, right? You have to let people know how bad their situation is. You're 100 pounds overweight. How long has this been going on for? Oh, it's been going on for a number of years. Huh. What else have you tried? This, and this. Why don't you think it worked? Huh. Well, I mean, I want to commend you for being here because it tells me you're actually ready to do something about that right now. Is that right? Yeah, cool. Well, what happens if nothing changes? Well, I'm not going to feel happy in my clothing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. Like I understand that perspective, right? And there's, whatever, you have to find leverage points in conversations with people. And it's not about manipulating them. It's about persuading them with the levers that are important to them. So if someone talks with the fact that they can't be present with their kids, you got to dig that knife. If someone had a family history of their parents passing early because they too were overweight, dig that knife. Do you actually want to be do you want to follow in your father's footsteps? Do you want to die prematurely and leave your kids stranded with no mom or dad? And I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom here, guys, okay? Please understand this. But you have to remind people of the severity of the very conditions they're dealing with, okay? If someone has a skin issue like acne, okay? Most people will do more to look good than they will to feel good. More people will do whatever they can to physically clean up their skin than clean up the inside of their body. That's why Botox and cosmetic surgery is so big, because it's a visual. People give a shit about what other people care about. Like, what other people think about them? Even people that don't even know, right? So if someone looks good from a skin perspective, a lot of times that's more motivating than if they had high blood pressure because they can't see high blood pressure, right? So use whatever you can as a leverage point in the conversation. There was another conversation we're looking at a lady in her early 60s, fairly health conscious. She mentioned in 10 minutes, in the first 10 minutes of the call, 5 or 6 times what other people think of her, okay? Like, I don't want to go to lunch with my girlfriends and them think in their minds that I'm overweight. I'm like, who cares what they think? But for her, obviously, that was a big leverage point. So for her, status in her social circle was a very big pain point. Dig the knife. How do you think it's going to make your friends feel when you show up and you're looking fantastic? They're going to be envious of how you look versus, well, how do you think you're going to feel, if you feel like shit, if you're overweight, if you're not how you want to be? How are you going to feel if you continue getting together with your friends and what they're thinking? Like, you have to find leverage points and you have to dig the knife. You got to dig the knife. The most compelling, if you look at the news, right? Like the saying, if it bleeds, it leads. Humans are captivated by pain and destruction. End of the world is coming. Like, that's what grabs people's attention. That's why the news is like, coming up at 6 o'clock tonight, squirrel shoots neighbor in the head. Well, like, what? But it grabs people's attention because we have more pain receptors in our brain than we do pleasure receptors. That's how we are wired. So we're always looking out for danger. Now, in your conversations with prospects, you have to get them out of the delusion of comfort. A lot of times you're talking to people who've had a condition for so long, they actually think it's normal. It's not normal to be 100 pounds overweight. It's not. It's not normal to have type 2 diabetes, and it's your fault if you have it. Let's just be very honest, right? You have to let people know that what they're dealing with is not normal, okay? The more they think it's normal, the less likely they are to do anything about it. So ask them questions. Don't lecture them about, the downsides or the consequences of diabetes or being overweight. You ask them questions. Well, let me ask you this. What do you think are the downsides of being 100 pounds overweight every single day you walk on this planet? And let the prospect tell you. And they're going to say this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, you're right. And then you could throw in a little something else if you want to. And did you also know? Boom. No, I didn't know that. Okay. So you have to find ways when people come to the problem, you have to give them a bigger problem. So in the context of like business coaching, if a person's coming to me and they're asking for business advice, and I'm like, cool, like, where's your business at revenue wise? Where do you want it to go? They're like, I'm doing about 15K a month. And I'm going to say 15K a month. How do you live on that? See what I've done there? They think they're doing okay, because a very big problem a lot of times is people think they're doing okay. I only have 10 pounds to lose, but for them, it's a big enough problem. But we normalize it. I'm doing 15K a month. Yeah, I've got a bunch of this stuff in place. How do you get up in the morning knowing that this month you're only going to make $15,000 in your business. And that's not take home, correct? Yeah, that's right. So what are you taking home out of your business on a monthly basis? About $5,000. And that pays for your mortgage, your food, your kids, miscellaneous, all that. Yeah. So what happens? And so again, like I'm just using this as an example, just a monster example. I'm thinking, how do I make this a bigger problem? Well, what happens if shit hits the fan and you have nothing to turn to, right? What happens if your kids have to go through school and you're going to pay $30,000 a year for private school or college or whatever it is? What happens if something happens to your parents and you have to take care of them? What happens? We have to find ways to get leverage, because if someone's situation is okay, they're not going to do anything about it. So I hope you understand, like, we have to turn frustrations into ticking time bombs. Turn frustrations into ticking time bombs. Sometimes it's relatively easy. Someone has migraines every other day. Okay, that's a very, very overt, persistent, painful problem. They want to solve it now. But some conditions, they're not that physically painful. And we have to muster up the pain to help them see that there's a better way of living through things. So when I was in my previous business, helping the average person lose weight, have more energy, all that stuff, a big part of what I did was helping people overcome fatigue, because that was a big problem that plagued my life for a long time. So I wrote the book, The All Day Energy Diet, became a #2 New York Times bestseller. And so you ask, one of the challenges is how do you sell something that's not quantifiable? If someone's 100 pounds overweight, they can visibly see the transformation. But when it comes to energy, it's harder. The interesting thing about energy is I've never met a single person on this planet who doesn't want to have more energy, right? That's why coffee is so big, right? It's like that caffeine jolt. So how do you sell something that is somewhat intangible, that for a lot of people who go through life, they just think feeling tired all the time is normal? And so I leaned in my personal story, which was essentially kind of finding a relationship between my hair loss at 17 and fatigue. And what I discovered, at least for me, was that I was so tired for so long that I didn't realize my body was having to use so much energy and resources to heal the toxic wasteland that was my body at the time. And that's eventually my body said, you know what, hey man, you didn't get the message, so now we're just going to attack the hair follicles. Okay, so I had an autoimmune condition called alopecia. So my learning from that was that low energy is a warning sign that something far more dangerous is brewing beneath the surface. And so I was able to use that as at least one angle to help people understand, hey, low energy, it's not just about being tired. Low energy, I want you to consider low energy as a warning light from your car, there's a very big problem with the engine. And if you don't take this into the shop, bad things are going to happen, because that's essentially what happens. And most people don't think of it like that. So again, I'm turning a frustration of low energy or fatigue into a ticking time bomb to get people to actually do something about it and start to create that correlation between, if you have more energy, then your body is functioning more efficiently. And if it's functioning more efficiently, then it's not using all of its reserves to fix shit. And so you as the expert have this opportunity to help people understand, whatever it is you help people solve, whether it's gut issues, skin issues, weight loss, whatever it is, find the leverage points to help people see that their current situation is catastrophic. And I know I'm using really big superlative words here, but if we don't help people see and internalize and feel the pain of their current situation, they will not change. It's not about making people feel bad. It's about helping people find leverage over themselves, because you fundamentally care about them, to help them do something to change so they can get better results. And so the reason people don't change, again, is because they don't have a big enough reason to do so. The pain of their current situation is not greater than the perceived pain of change. Your job, my job, is to increase the pain of the current situation by asking questions, by helping them see the consequences of inaction, for them to fully internalize that so they can see whatever the investment is in you, and more importantly in them, as insignificant in comparison to that. Today I want to talk to you about the difference between the mindset when it comes to expectations of winning versus being okay with okay. I want to share a quick little story with you about the difference in the mindset of the Canadian culture versus the American culture.